I got a question for you. Do you like Guardian? Of course you do. You clicked on this video after all. Do you want to build with a basic rotation? Sure you do. Do you want that build to be effective in group PvE, solo content, and open world all in one? Well, do I have the build for you? This is my Holy Gunslinger Willbender. We're going to be using dual pistols to stack up condi damage and trigger all the defensive abilities, while needing to only make minimal changes for each different type of content. Sounds great, doesn't it? Well, let's get you started. We'll break down the build and discuss all the things. Okay, so my goal here is to have a simple build that you can use in group content and also carry over to open world, while making minimal changes that aren't going to cost you lots of gold or require a full extra set of gear. You also should be able to play the build exactly the same way in different content, within reason of course. So I will start with the group focus build, which is going to be a condi DPS build. So we will be using Viper stats on everything. Since we will ideally have a heal support player in the party, we don't need to invest into defensive stats, we can go full damage. For the armor rune, I like Trapper. You can make an argument for a few other condi damage runes, but I feel like Trapper gets the most consistent results across all game modes. For weapons, we take Pistol Torch and then a single pistol in the offhand on the second set. This will make it so a weapon swap will just swap out the offhand weapon. This is all we're going to need. For sigils, I'm taking some passive bonuses, Bursting on the main hand and Smoldering on the offhand. With this whole setup, you'll notice we have high power, a whopping high condi damage, and burn duration at 97%. I know, not 100, but I mean, come on, 97, pretty damn close. And for the relic, take the obvious choice of Relic of the Fractal, just for some extra condi. For the traits, this is nothing special or out of the ordinary. It's pretty standard for a condi guardian build, so I'm not going to go too in-depth here explaining everything. We have Radiance Virtue's Willbender. Radiance takes middle, top. Right-hand strength for the one-handed weapon power bonus, but also the other choices here are not necessary in a group. Radiant Fire is a burn damage and torch enhancement. Amplified Wrath is another burn enhancement and Virtue 1 enhancement. Virtues, we take bottom, top. Master of Consecrations increase the duration of consecration skills. One of our big damage skills is a consecration, so this is great to have. Inspiring Virtue is a strike damage bonus, but the other two traits here are not necessary. Permeating Wrath is another big burning enhancement. Willbender, take top, middle. Searing Pact for the condi damage bonus. Restorative Virtues, triggering a virtue lowers active weapon cooldowns, very nice. The other two choices here I find are not necessary in organized groups. And Tyrant's Momentum for the big overall damage bonus. Again, the other choices here are not necessary. Since we will have an alacrity provider in the group, Phoenix Protocol is pointless. And if our healer is healing and we follow mechanics, Deathless Courage is also going to be pointless. The skills are very simple. Litany of Wrath on the heal. I think this is the best in slot heal for a Guardian. If timed along with a damage burst, your damage will be able to fully heal you. Utilities, Purging Flames to apply lots of burning damage, Whirling Light to hit lots and trigger virtues, and a flex slot which is usually Signet of Wrath just to keep things simple. But you can swap this out for whatever else you may need. For example, more CC, another fast hitting skill, or maybe a stun break if you don't trust your support. On the elite, take Heaven's Palm. This will serve as your main contribution to a CC break bar. But also the other elites are not necessary since they provide something that another player is going to be providing. So now let's take a look at the way you'll be dealing damage with this build. It's very easy. You will have two damage combos to make up your main rotation. First, Purging Flames, Rushing Justice, and Whirling Light. Then, with both pistols equipped, Symbol of Ignition, Hail of Justice, Peacekeeper. And that's about it. You can use any of your other skills in between to fill the gaps while you wait for these main combos to come off cooldown. But this main rotation combo is all you're really going to need to do to play your role properly. You can definitely get more technical with this setup and squeeze out more DPS by using more skills. For example, working in a weapon swap to use Zealot's Flame, using another virtue to trigger more virtue effects or virtue related traits. One important thing to keep in mind, virtue skills are movement based, so you have to be aware of how you aim them, but it's not hard to get used to. But I've noticed that even if you just use the bare bones basic rotation, or if you mess up your rotation or mess up your cooldowns, this build applies so much condi that even still you'll be dealing enough DPS to keep up with the rest of the party. Now the general design of Willbender and its active defenses makes it so this build can actually perform quite well in the open world. Even if you end up playing completely solo, it will still work with a few minor changes made, so let's get into that now. The only thing we're really missing here is self-sustain and support. I suppose if you're a god gamer and you can play with frame perfection all the time, you don't need any changes. But for us mortals, there are a few changes that can really boost sustain. Let's start with the traits. We have a few changes that'll give us that sustain and boon generation we're looking for. In Radiance, we'll take Inner Fire. This will act as a source of fury generation. In Virtues, we need to take Absolute Resolve. Since we have no support, we need a way to cleanse condis on our own, and this is probably the best way to do it for this build at least. In Willbender, we change everything. Conceited Curate, this will boost vitality, but also heal us when Willbender Flames hit an enemy. In this build, we'll be hitting things with Willbender Flames all the time, so this acts as a pretty good source of healing. Holy Reckoning, this is a big source of might generation. You can easily get up to 25 might consistently by yourself with this trait. And Phoenix Protocol, since we're solo, it would be nice to have at least one of the two important boons, and this trait will allow us to get Alacrity when Virtue 2 is used and is triggered. On the skill bar, I haven't really made any changes. The only thing now I would suggest is picking a stun break or defensive skill for the flex slot. For example, Stand Your Ground, Save Yourselves, Roiling Light. Reason being because, like I said, we don't have any support, so we need to have some kind of defensive skill for ourselves. If you want to go further with self-healing, you can also switch the relic to Relic of the Defender. This will heal every time you block with a diminishing return, so keep that in mind. Or maybe even Relic of Zakharos. Since we have a high fury uptime, we should get pretty consistent healing from it. These changes make the build feel a lot better when playing solo. Even if you happen to get hit hard, you can self-heal back up really quickly. Now, when it comes to equipment stats, I've tried to make minimal changes here in the interest of not having to make a full second set of gear, because I know not everyone will want to do that. If you have the resources to make a second set of gear or have full legendary, then by all means run this exact setup with full celestial and you'll be good to go forever. But for everyone else, this build will still work well as is with full Viper, or you can make some changes to give yourself a more comfy stat spread. If you need or want extra survivability, what I have done is added in some dire armor pieces. Just to the big stat pieces, this gives us a boost of toughness and vitality without spreading our stat numbers too wide. That way we aren't too squishy when our defenses are not active, or if we happen to take a big hit, we won't get one shot killed. Also, if you happen to have a high level Jadebot core, that will also give a huge boost to vitality. You could pick a stat combo other than dire if you want to cover any other stats you may want instead, but I'd recommend sticking with stat combos that have condi damage as a main stat, since condi damage is still the most important stat for the build, since it's how we're going to be dealing all of our damage. When it comes to combat, this build now works exactly the same as before. Same damage rotation combo, Purging Flames, Rushing Justice, Whirling Light. Then you hit him with the pistol combo. However, keep in mind now, you'll want to use Virtue 2 somewhere at the beginning of the rotation to help you generate Alacrity, and you'll want to save Virtue 3 for defensive purposes. Like I said before, Willbender has great active defenses, so if you are making use of them properly, you shouldn't have to go overboard with defensive stats or skills. Just the few changes that we made should be enough. Now mind you, this build setup may not be able to solo all content or very difficult content. However, what it does do is allow you to take one build and use it effectively in group content and the open world. It doesn't top the DPS charts or anything, but it keeps up. I usually find myself around 4th DPS, which is respectable, especially considering this is a very simple, low skill level build. So I do believe that's going to be a wrap on my Holy Gunslinger build. You should now have everything you need to get out there and smite your enemies straight from the barrels of your guns. If you decide to try this build out for yourself, I hope it works out well for you. Thank you very much for watching, especially if you watched all the way through. But that's going to be all for this one, so until next time, bye for now.